Good morning, everyone. Welcome to my Suburban Oasis. It is morning, and I am here in Michigan in Zone 5B, and my name is Soleil. And I just got a skosh of rain last night, just enough to make some things look beautiful. I thought I would show you really quick before we get into this video, the dew and the droplets on this spirea. Isn't that gorgeous? I mean, it's just shining. Anyhow, today's video is going to be about ground covers. I've gotten a number of questions from people about what ground covers I use, and so I thought I would just walk through the garden and show you where some of them are and tell you a little bit about what they are and why I use them. Oops, it looks like a rock fell out of place. Okay. So right here you can see some variegated liriape, which is around the edges of my borders, and this will form nice pretty little lavender blooms, and it grows from small bulbs, and it is pretty hardy. And I would say that this is the low end of the hardiness zone, zone 5, but it definitely does well in warmer climates. And it does good in sun or in part shade. And this is a sun bed right here. And so I have used it primarily in sun and part sun. And then I also use pretty prolifically this Ajuga, which is the chocolate chip variety. And you can see it in this bed. And you can see a lot of it in this bed over here. This is where I started growing it. And it has a beautiful profusion of blooms in the early spring, which I absolutely love. It looks gorgeous when not a lot of other things are blooming. And it is very hardy. It is extremely tough. I get a lot of questions as to whether or not this is too aggressive, and I will say that it's not. It spreads a little bit, but it has fairly shallow roots, so it doesn't really crowd things out. And if you want to remove it from around plants, it's really easy to pull. It just comes out in really small clumps. While I'm here, I just want to show you, I'm going to get some new blooms on my incredible hydrangeas. I'm excited about that. Those will be the first ones since they've been in my garden. Some other ground covers that I use in this bed include the Sedums. And you can see over here I have a number of different kinds. Most of these are from the Sun Sparkler Dazzler series. I also have some hen and chicks. These are sempervivums, and there are some that are actually hardy, so they overwinter. Now again, I'm in a zone 5B. These sedums will grow, I believe, down to zone 5, and they are good definitely in climates where it's hotter, and they absolutely prefer full sun. This is a south-facing bed. So I find they perform best in well-drained soil. Mine is pretty clay, so it's good to amend it if you can, but they definitely survive in my clay soil rather than thrive, if you will. Then I also started to put in this year some of this Bishop's Rock Form geraniums. These are really cute. I'll show you, I have them in another area as well, and I've just been putting them around because I find that they bloom from May until, it looks like so far, I think they're going to bloom all the way until September, so those are lovely. And then you'll see those are tucked in along with another type of liriape, which is not variegated. So this is the same as that variegated one that I showed you earlier. And you can see over here I have tucked some of that geranium in here as well. And it's just a lovely thing to put in the cracks and crevices between plants, because for me, I prefer eventually for my ground to be completely covered. It helps with avoiding having to mulch all of the time, and it keeps the ground moist, and it looks really pretty too. Now over here, I just finished planting a spirea bush in this area and moved an aronia bush over here and some wee hostas because I found that some of my sun-loving plants that were in this area were getting too much shade. But you can see amongst that I have some small ground cover. This is sweet woodruff, and this does like shade or part shade, and it has beautiful little white flowers early in the spring which smell good, which is why it's probably called sweet woodruff. And it's just a wonderful plant. It creeps, and it definitely goes by rhizomes, so it can be a little bit more difficult to pull out, but it's not as difficult as it's not an invasive plant, let me just say that. And then I don't know if people consider heuchera as ground covers, but you'll see those all throughout my beds as well. I consider them to be just a perennial plant and not a ground cover. So you see I have some more sedum here. And then this is a Lamium right here that I got earlier this year. And it definitely is very happy now, and I'm hoping it will self-seed because I just love the color of it. But Lamium is not a perennial, this is an annual, so again I hope that it self-seeds. And then I have some more sedum here, and sedum does best in full sun. This bed faces west. You can see I have a lot of violets throughout my yard as ground cover. This is not intentional. This is something that self-seeds. These are wild violets. They are fairly invasive. There are certain kinds that are not as invasive. The ones that are actually native to my area are not. These do bloom. They have a beautiful little purple bloom in the spring when not a lot else is flowering. So I don't mind them. And they're pretty... Some people say that they're hard to get rid of or they're hard to dig out, and I find that that's not necessarily true for me. I think they're fairly easy to get out. My biggest problem is they reseed so much, you guys. So it's fairly quick for them to just pop up in any different place. I also have this phlox. It's called Blue Moon. I have several different types of creeping phlox that I use throughout my yard as well. Most of them are hardy in zones 5 to 9. A lot of the plants that I grow are hardy in those zones. One other one that I like to show you, which is a really good performer, is this Lamium. Now, I don't recommend planting this in a place where it can take over, because it will reseed itself. I had some in a front area of my garden, and even though I continue to pull it, the seeds have lasted for years, and I just continue to pull small pieces of it out. Now, it's not hard to pull, and it's a gorgeous plant because it blooms pretty much consistently. And I would like to move some of this back into my way back garden. So that one is great. Now, a lot of people don't think of hostas as ground cover, but they actually sell quite a few mini hostas. This one, for instance, is probably maxes out at about 8 inches. And this is a gold edger. And I think it was actually designed to be an edging plant. And ground covers can also be used very effectively as edging plants. Now over here you'll see I have some other Ajugas. These are the canary kinds. You see they're green with some hints of yellow. And these will definitely spread. And this is another one of those spring blue moon phlox, but it has been pretty well eaten by a rabbit at this point. It does put up blooms about, I would say, 10 inches tall in the spring. So it's nice to have ground covers that bloom. And I'm going to show you over here. I have some of the violets that are native, and I don't know if you can tell the difference, but the other ones are really heart-shaped and very cup-formed, and these have a little bit more of a ridge on the outside, and they're not as shiny. They're softer feel to the touch. And so these are the ones that are natural. They don't spread prolifically. I actually have to divide them to get them along the edge of this pathway, which I have done a little bit of recently. So hopefully next spring we'll have a nice show of those natural violets. Or native violets, excuse me. Everything's natural out here, right? And here's some more sedum that I have. This one I don't do anything with, and I just have it in this little Japanese lantern, and it's kind of coming out and seeding itself or dropping itself onto the ground around it, which is fine by me. Sedum, again, really likes the sun the best, so in that particular area it won't get really crazy because it's more of a part shade area. Now over here I also have more Ajuga. This one is what I consider the type that you see most of the time. It's kind of the classic Ajuga, and I don't actually know the name of it, but it also has some beautiful flowers in the spring. And then I also have another kind here, which is called Burgundy Glow. I like to refer to it as tricolor more because it's got green and white and like a pinky purple. So it doesn't really look burgundy to me. But those are all, the Ajuga is really good because, as I said, you can just put it places and it will enjoy it. It enjoys sun, it enjoys shade, so it's very versatile. Here's some more of it that I had planted in the edge of this garden bed just to soften the edge as well as to allow it to propagate so I can use it in places around my yard. And then I have a little bit of the canary in here. And this is a veronica, and this is a new one that I'm trying, and so I'm trying it out in this bed to see how it performs, and may put it out next year. And then this one right here, I can't remember the name of it, you guys. I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to look it up. I'm gonna put some of these names in the description for you. This one's a new one for me as well. I just want to see how it performs, how quickly it spreads before I actually put it into a garden with no boundaries. So I thought I would show you over here as well. I'm adding some of that ground cover, so more of that Burgundy Glow Ajuga along here. Now some people like to use Lily of the Valley as a ground cover. I hate it. I've tried to get it out of this bed about 5 different times. Dug it all completely out, but if you leave even a very small rhizome or something like that in there, or root, it will come back. So it's very unfortunate, but that's what it does. Or maybe it's great if you want to use it in a woodland garden because you have a large swath of property, then I would recommend using it that way. I don't have as many ground covers in this bed, but I would consider this geranium to be a bit of a ground cover if you wanted to use it that way because it does spread quite prolifically. This is Dreamland, and it has pretty pink flowers on it. It doesn't really like my clay soil that much, so I have to work at amending the soil because it likes it a little bit better draining, a little bit richer. And then I have one more kind of Ajuga over here in this bed, which is called, this is the black scallop variety, and this is probably the biggest one that I have. It's very shiny, it's very dark, and it's about 6 inches tall. And it has really beautiful flowers on it as well in the springtime. Now, some of these other ones are just annuals. I wanted to cover primarily the perennial ones that I have today because those, I think, that come back every year and spread help to do the best ground coverage. And this is a phlox by, I think this is the Purple Sprite, which is by Proven Winners, and that one is doing really well. And then on the back side of this garden, I have some more sedum. This is the Angelina, and then behind it, oh, excuse my shadow, I have the chocolate chip variety here, which is something I just split and put out here this year. And you can see I took some very small pieces of the Angelina sedum and I put it back here. So as that kind of spreads out, we'll see which one is more vigorous and which one does better in this bed. Now I also do think that Dianthus is a little bit of a ground cover when they have the smaller varieties. So this is my pink pom-pom Dianthus, and this is also a perennial, and it has bloomed pretty prolifically for me this summer. It's just it went a little dormant when it got super warm. It's its first year in my garden, so sometimes in the first year the roots are not completely established, but when it got super hot and a bit dry, it decided that it didn't want to perform anymore, but it's starting to put out some new blooms now. I have the Liriope again, the variegated Liriope here, so you can see it used in a different way. This way I have it as an edger in front of rocks, and as you can see, the blooms on it are just starting, and there'll be quite a few of them, and when they do, it looks really beautiful. And then the final one that I'll share with you that is also a geranium is one that I use in many areas of my yard, and that is this Geranium macrorhizum, which is the large root geranium. This one spreads well. It smells great when you rub your fingers on it. It has pretty little pink blooms right around May, and they don't last very long, but they are pretty and they are a pollinator attractor. And I would just also say that I use this as a filler quite often throughout my garden beds as I'm establishing them. It doesn't require much water at all. It does well in dry shade where many things don't do well. So this is under the overhang on the north side of my house where it does not get much natural water at all. But you can see that it's quite happy and healthy even at the end of summer. And this is the gold edger. So this is in less sun because this is on the north side. This is the gold edger hosta that I showed you earlier in the back where it gets almost full sun. And this is again pretty much shade, full shade. So it does, this is its full size, and it's probably about 12 inches high here, and you can see that the leaves are a bit larger. Well, I hope that you have enjoyed the video today on ground covers and you found some that you like or that you could use in your garden. And I'm looking forward to sharing with you my next update. So we'll talk to you soon. Bye!